Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sunday Morning Shred. I'm your host, Mark Murray. This is the show where you wake up Sunday morning, you roll out of bed, you go grab your coffee, your tea, your cereal, your chocolate milk, soda, whatever you like on Sundays. Wake up, go grab it, and then you head to YouTube, and I'm here waiting for you to come talk guitars with me. So today, we got a really cool one. We're going to be looking at this old issue of Guitar World from March of 1998. This thing came out when I was 11 years old. I recently bought a bunch of these on eBay. Actually, not recently. It was about a year ago. I bought a bunch of old back issues of Guitar World and Van Halen and Metallica issues so that I can go over them with you guys and show you some of my favorite old magazines that I remember when I was a kid. I actually remember going to the little newsstand in my guitar shop that I used to visit all the time when I was 11 years old. I can't believe I was 11 when this came out because I remember it very clearly. So that's like, is that 20? Oh my gosh, that is more than 20 years ago. That is insane. So this was like right after a couple years into my guitar playing. This Kirk Hammett issue came out showing the Ouija on the front. So cool. I've already went through, I flagged some of my favorite stuff, so I'm not walking blindly into this one like I have in the past with some of the other guitar magazine read-throughs, but we're going to go through it. I'm going to look at almost every page with you guys, and I'm going to comment on some of the ads and some of the products that were available at the time, and we're going to go over some of the articles that were in here. Before we jump into it, I want to say if you hear some humming in the background, it is hot. We're in July here. I'm in Southern California. It's almost 90 degrees by 10 a.m. most days. So it is boiling out there, and we got the AC rocking. If you hear it in the background and it's bugging you, sorry about that, but I got to be comfortable in here while we record these things. I also want to say happy 4th of July to all my fellow Americans or anyone else who wants to celebrate it. Tomorrow is 4th of July. A lot of people are celebrating today on Sunday, but I got my USA, my American flag style astronaut shirt on, so didn't even mean to do that actually, but let's jump on into this thing. Everyone be safe out there. Please don't blow your hands off. As guitar players, we need our fingers, all of them, so be safe with the fireworks. Of course, if you're in a place like California, don't be starting fires, don't be getting crazy, no one needs that. Go to a real fireworks show if you need to get your fill like that. But enough of me being political. That's as political as I'm going to get with you guys. Let's get into the guitar talk now. Alright, I've gone through and I've kind of adjusted the light here in the shop. I got a lot of overhead lighting, so hopefully it'll reduce most of the glare. But there's going to be a little bit of glare. I apologize for that. So here we got the cover. This is awesome. Such a good cover. Kirk with the Ouija guitar. You can tell it's got some wear on it at this point. He was a guest editor for this issue, so he chose one of the songs that was tabbed out. There's a bunch of stuff that's exclusive to Kirk Hammett in this issue, so let's go ahead and jump on in. First off, someone ripped out a page from here. Clearly, this was supposed to be a 2-page ad. Hate when people do that kind of stuff. It opens up with an old PRS ad, and this is before PRS was as hot as they are now. Now they're so popular, but I remember seeing these at the time, and I didn't really know anybody who played them. We got the McCarty model they were showing, and they were doing the flame maple tops and all that cool stuff, but they weren't as, like, you know, sexy. They got some amazing looking guitars these days. The Boss ad back in 1998, Boss was everything to me, so I loved these Boss ads that showed all the different pedals, and I used to have this on my wall. Gibson used to have like a line of posters that they would have at the music shops that you can get, and I wonder if he's still around. I mean, I can't imagine 20-something years later that he's still a professional snowboarder. But here we go. So here we got the table of contents, and we got Yngwie Malmsteen's in there, Ry Cooder, we got, of course, Kirk over here. Encore, Everything You Know Is Wrong by Kirk Hammett. That's an article we're definitely going to be taking a close look at. We got Marty Friedman, Steve Morse, doing monthly columns in here. The dude from the Goo Goo Dolls, I know a lot of you are probably looking forward to that. Gear Factory, so they always go over new gear that came out. And then we got Kirk Hammett's live rig, the effects he uses for his live sound. Got Sex and Candy. A lot of you guys I know are Marcy Playground fans. I'm totally kidding, by the way. I don't think you're Goo Goo Dolls fans, and I don't think you're Marcy Playground fans. Although Sex and Candy is an amazingly well-written song. And then we have Kirk Hammett, so a whole interview with him. This is a little hidden gem in here. Van Halen Rises Again is the third time a charm for Eddie and the gang. So this is right around the time that Eddie and his band Van Halen, of course, put out Van Halen 3. These Digitech pedals back then were so awesome. They were like all-in-ones that you can bank through and then turn All right, things are falling over here. I'm adjusting on the fly. This is a disaster. With the lights I'm using, I look like I'm in candlelight over here. I got cardboard falling on me. What kind of operation am I running over here? All right, let's get back into it. So we got the Digitech ad right here. And like I was saying, you have all these different banks and you can toggle individual effects on and off. They had the built-in expression pedal. When I was a brand new guitarist, this was like my dream to have something like this. Now we have the aux effects, we have digital effects through computers, and you would never really need something like this. You can get a MIDI controller that can do way more than this, and really cool though. We got the Dean guitars. I remember looking at all these little, crazy shaped guitars down here. We got the Explorer and the ML and the Flying V's, and I thought this was such a cool ad when I was a kid. Seymour Duncan, Buck the System. And they got the Invader, the JB, the Seth Lover, the Jazz. They still have all those. Those are probably some of their best-selling pickups. The SH2 and the SH2 here, SH4. I think that's the SH8 Invader, Heavy Tones. This was like their people would write in. We got the DOD effects. I wonder if they're still making effects. This was a fun little opening here. So we got a James Hetfield thing here. It says crosstalk. I like a woman who's got some balls, some strength. As long as I can beat her at arm wrestling, that's fine. What? It's like saying all ex-football players are potential wife killers. It's these stereotypes you get stuck with. Metallica drummer Lars Ulrich, after Philadelphia residents complained that the group's 40,000 ticket free concert would be, free concert, 40,000 tickets, would be noisy and violent. And he said, it's like saying all ex-football players are potential wife killers. It's these stereotypes that you get stuck with. Probably because, metal fans had a bad reputation at the time. Nowadays, I bet you it'd be a completely different story. If James Hetfield and the gang were to go to, Philadelphia, I bet you people would be so happy. I bet you the news would be talking, because they're almost like mainstream now. Sammy Hagar. So, away from Van Halen, painting the town red. He celebrates the big 50. There he is jamming a pretty sweet guitar. Almost looks like a Petrucci, but no, it's not. It's definitely something a little crazier looking. It's got like a dinosaur head or something there. Really cool. So the old man turned 50, and how old is he then? That means he's like over 70 years old? I gotta look that up. 74? That is crazy. Wow, older than I thought. Diodario. Look at Pick Boy. They used to have Pick Boy, a big case of them, at the front, like the checkout counter at my local music shop. And they were the coolest picks. They smelled good, but they were like $1 each or 80 cents each. And I was like, that's crazy when you can buy Tortexes for, 35 cents each, or a pack for like $2. Maybe they were more than $1. Maybe they were like $3. I can't remember now. But I wonder if they have the ones I liked. There was one that had a bunch of bumps on it. I don't see it there. And I actually have one somewhere in my pick collection. There's Dino. He's still around. We got the Warmoth ad. Warmoth is huge now. I wonder how big they were at that time. Only $2 will bring you our full catalog of the best necks, bodies, and hardware. You used to have to pay to get the catalog. There's no website you could just go to back then. So they're still in Washington, same area, same city, it looks like. West LA Music. It's on Santa Monica Boulevard. I wonder if that place is still there. Here we go. Eddie Van Halen with this 56 Chevy Nomad Bel Air. Very cool. It says, could this be magic? Eddie Van Halen brings Gary Cherone aboard and introduces Van Halen 3. Yeah. So, EMGs. Nice. So let's read a little bit of it at least. Fidgeting on the floor of the lounge adjacent to his 5150 recording studio, Eddie Van Halen looks about as antsy as a kid on Christmas morning, now in its third incarnation, with former Extreme frontman Gary Cherone on vocals. The Van Halen band is geared up for the release of a new album, its 11th studio release in 2 decades. Van Halen 3 has been in the can, ready to go for about 3 months, but isn't slated to hit the streets for another 3 months. It's not just the debut of a new vocalist, but, according to Eddie, a pivotal point in his life as a musician, and he's champing at the bit to explain why. It's supposed to be chomping. Champing? You know what I was just thinking as I was reading that? I was thinking about, this is March of 1998. How old is Wolf Van Halen? What year was he born? He was probably born in like 90, right? So he's got a young boy, an 8-year-old son. He's got the band back together. There they are. Eddie, Alex, got Mike, and Gary Sharon. I'm pretty sure this is continuing with Eddie. I don't really even remember playing guitar for the record, he says, looking surprised to hear himself say so. I was so focused on the production of it and the big picture that guitar playing on this record was more secondary to songwriting. That is weird to hear. This was the biggest thing that's ever happened in my life, and Alex and I started playing music when we were 6. I mean, this was major. The catalyst for change was Sharon. Not only did the singer and the guitarist strike up a personal rapport, which Eddie says was always lacking during both the David Lee Roth and the Sammy Hagar years, but an entirely different kind of working relationship. For the first time in the life of the band, Van Halen was inspired to write music specifically for the lyrics Sharon gave him. My attitude has always been, he pauses and sings the opening of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. What kind of lyric can you put on that? If you remove the singing or lyrics, the music holds up on its own, like it has in the past. I just treat the voice as another instrument. How Many Say I is the first song ever in my life where somebody handed me the lyrics and I read it and just went, this is heavy. I was laying in bed going, honey, I have to go down and play piano. And I turned on the little micro DAT machine, and as long as the song is, that's how long it took to write the music. This whole record is that way, because I really didn't do anything. It just came through. Finally, I have a musical soulmate who is on the same page, same paragraph, same line, so to speak. He continues, before it wasn't really collaborating. I'd write the music and Dave or Sammy would noodle over it and half the lyrics. I didn't even know what they were, even though they'd write melodies. I mean, if you didn't read the lyrics along with listening, you missed the record. He's talking about this record. There's depth there. It ain't all about female body parts, if you know what I mean. It's hard for me to listen to some of the older stuff because now I'm listening to the lyrics and going, 1/900 spank? Haha, that's funny. So it's really weird to hear Eddie say that because when he said guitar was almost secondary on this record, that's weird. But I get what he's saying about the old, less mature lyrics. I mean, how long can you write songs about beautiful girls on the beach? And Sammy took it to a more romantic level, but it was still all songs about love, you know? I don't know what the lyrics on this album are, but maybe one day on Sunday Morning Shred, we'll kind of go over some of the lyrics. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. But yeah, interesting article. It's long, so we're not going to read it all, but Sharon phones home. We got another Gary Sharon related article there to do with it. Eddie's got his old pickup truck here. Really cool. Got Joe Rogan from his Fear Factor days. Fu fight. White zombie member mixes with Fu Manchu in the laboratory, becomes one human being. Here we go. Metal fatigue. Oh, what? Kirk Hammett tells why Metallica will never be metal again? What is he talking about? So 1998, this is when Reload and Load, came out in 96 and 97. Metallica, after their last album, Hardwired, they are super metal. They came out with some great stuff on that album. I mean, I'm a Load and Reload fan too, don't get me wrong. I actually really love those albums. But that's so funny that he doesn't think that, there's definitely some heavy stuff. I mean, Fuel is pretty metal, right? It says, Kirk Hammett is tired, hungry, and hungover. It's 6 p.m. He wants food. He needs sleep. 6 p.m. he needs sleep? Interesting. He'd like 20 minutes to himself, if it's okay, in his hotel room. A dark, candlelit suite on New York City's neatly manicured Upper East Side. Things have been moving fast, he explains. Metallica is in town on a press junket for Reload, the group's bold new companion to 1996's Load. Tomorrow night, the group makes its first ever appearance on Saturday Night Live. Monday, it's on to Las Vegas and a performance at the Billboard Music Awards. But on this Friday night in December, with an early winter rain settling over the sky, he just wants to take it easy, relax with some red wine, and listen to some CDs from his traveling jazz collection. Thelonious Monk, Chet Baker, Coltrane. He says, regrettably, did not make the trip. Aw, I thought that's what he was saying he was jamming out to. As the lead riffer for heavy metal's premier band, Hammett has enjoyed the adulation of fans, the platinum album sales, dollars in the millions. Now at 35, he, like the rest of his group, just wants a little time to smell the proverbial roses. There's a lot of non-musical things that demand our attention right now, he explains, like family being the number one thing, having a life outside the band, having enough private time that isn't consumed by the band. That's what I'm talking about. Kirk Hammett and his bandmates have earned the right to what little downtime they can get. The past 2 years have been intense for Hammett, guitarist-singer James Hetfield, bassist Jason Newsted, and drummer Lars Ulrich, as they've broken the constraints of their heavy metal past and recast Metallica according to the growing interests of its 4 members. Beginning with 1996's Load, the opening volley in Metallica's bid for creative sovereignty, the group has been constantly on the move, touring incessantly between returning to the studio for Reload, an album of tracks intended for Load, and Left to Another Day when the record's release date came too soon. Let's skip up here to where it's quoting Kirk a little more. So these albums were heavily criticized by Metallica fans, and we continue here. Hammett admits he's confused by the response. Maybe they're just not very evolved musically. Maybe they're just not musically mature in the way they hear things. He motions to the CD player where Monk hammers away at Straight, No Chaser. 10 years ago, jazz would have bored me. Now I feel a little more musically mature. I can understand it and get into it and digest it for what it is. I don't know, he continues with a shrug, trying to answer a question that's been nagging at him for the last 2 years since the release of Load. Maybe these people who hear changes in the music, maybe they just don't hear it like we hear it. I don't have an explanation for people like that. I just know that we've come to a point in our careers where it's not important for us to sell 8 million albums again. We've done that. We can put out an album full of polka songs or come up with a country opera or something, and it wouldn't matter to us because we're not doing this to make money. We're doing this for the art of it. So what I hear is actually a little foreshadowing into the future of Metallica with like Saint Anger and some of the stuff that they did, Lulu, stuff that was way away from metal. They did their artistic thing. Clearly wasn't as successful. Saint Anger actually is pretty good if you can get past the tones on the album. But yeah, this is the beginning of Metallica kind of going a little off path from their original bass fans. Even the Black Album was heavily criticized by a lot of their fans back then. So here Kirk goes into some of his approach to soloing, and it gives examples in the tab, and he talks about probably how he comes up with things. Very cool. That'd be an interesting thing to get into too, because a lot of Kirk Hammett's stuff kind of seems random and seems crazy. It doesn't always seem like he's sticking to scales, so if there's reasoning behind that, well, maybe there is. This is really cool. So some of Kirk's favorite pedals. We got Love Tone pedals, perhaps the gear with the most vintage appeal in Kirk's collection of Love Tone pedals. Love Tone is an English company known for its line of innovatively designed retro chic pedals. Jimmy Page has several, and Kirk uses 3, the Wobulator, the Brown Source, and the Meatball. Oh, so that's them right there. So old vintage pedals. I'm not a big vintage kind of guy myself, to be honest. I really like more modern stuff. The Digitech Whammy, that looks like the original Digitech Whammy there with the grip on the foot. They've re-released it, and it's kind of similar to the newer ones, but for a long time, they kind of took that off the market and were making these like weird versions that didn't sound as good. The Roland VG8, which is a multi-effect pedal, probably it's amp modeling and has all kinds of different tones built into it. Very cool. I always thought that was disgusting. I don't want to see a man lick his guitar. I don't know why. On Metallica producer Bob Rock, it happened on every album. It comes to a point where he just like screams at me, and it's always halfway through what we're doing. He's venting, but he's also right too. But he brings out the best in me. If anything, he's the musical director of Metallica, the music dictator. If you guys have seen the making of the Black Album, you can see that exact kind of thing happened, and Kirk starts to get pissed at him because they're trying to record the Unforgiven solo, and Kirk is doing some cool stuff. He's doing some of the hooks that you've heard, but it's not really it's nowhere near as good as the album version. And then Bob Rock gets in his face and starts talking to him. Then Bob Rock gets in his face and says, "Oh, Guitarist of the Year, this is really the best you can do, huh?" And Kirk just rips this wicked solo that's like very close to the Unforgiven recorded album version. And everybody in the studio is like, "Oh," and Bob Rock's like, "Oh, dang. Oh, dang." Hammett's up. Who's at the top of Kirk's list? Considering Kirk Hammett's diverse musical taste, it's not surprising to hear him praise Government Mule guitarist Warren Haynes, Jimi Hendrix cohort Larry Lee, and British troubadour Nick Cave in the same sentence. For the record, here's a small sampling of the artists who make Hammett's short list. Jim Campilongo, I don't really listen to any of these guys. Eric Bell, Junior Brown, Scott Gorham. On his critics, I don't really listen to critics. I read reviews. Take it all with a grain of salt. Take the good with the bad. It really doesn't faze me because they can't change what I really feel about the music. So this is probably cool. He's talking about a lot of the criticism. I like that. I like that he's hitting it head on, especially in a mainstream publication for guitar players like Guitar World. On his obsessions, I'm death obsessed. You know, I have death all over my house. I have a stuffed two-headed sheep. That's very strange and cool. We got Sennheiser mics. GHS boomers, that's what I used for a long time. Look at that cool swirl guitar. On blues players, B.B. King, Eric Clapton, Buddy Guy. These are guys who did it when there wasn't even much of a living they can make out of it. I have a tremendous respect for them, sticking in there and hanging on to it, and it finally paying off in their later years. Thank God. On Dyer's Eve from Justice, I forgot how to play it. We never play it live. Certain members of the band are very adamant about not playing it. I think it's a physical thing. There's some awful fast strums in that song. When he says certain members, I bet you it's just Lars, because it's insane. It's got crazy double bass. These were the best. These you could order T-shirts and flags. So these are concert T-shirts that you could order back in the 90s. And I would always go look at the Metallica ones, the graffiti group photo they got. Ride the Lightning, Metal Up Your Ass, Rebel, Reload. They always had a lot of Metallica ones. Is it only metal? Let's see. They got Van Halen on here. They got Tool. No Van Halen. What were the other ones? I always... Iron Maiden. They got to have Maiden, right? Limp Bizkit, Korn. I've never owned a Limp Bizkit or a Korn shirt. Yeah, one Iron Maiden shirt. That's a good one, but they should have a lot more than that. Slayer, AC/DC. Got the Epiphone page. Justice for All. Kirk's favorite riffs. I will go on the record to say I will do anything for a good riff. I'll listen to the most retarded music in the world if it will inspire me to write a good riff. Wow. Very cool. Rock Bottom. Strangers in the Night by UFO. Thelonious Monk. Straight, No Chaser. So I like that he's putting Coltrane and Thelonious Monk and things that are his other style that maybe the metal fans wouldn't be as big of a fan of. But I like that they're all in here so that we can all get a taste of it and learn a little piece of it. Again, like I was saying, this is like early internet days, 1998. A lot of people didn't have good websites. There wasn't like a lot of great tabs out there. But there was the Olga directory. If you guys remember Olga, leave a comment down there and let me know, because I think it was Olga.net or Harmony Central. There was these tab databases where people would use like Notepad program and tab out these long tabs of every song. You can get Stairway to Heaven back then. It was 17 pages long. You'd print it out. And the top would always have like this disclaimer. And I would have stacks. People would save their tabs and trade them around afterwards. And if you didn't have a printer, that sucked, because back in 98, like, it would be pretty uncommon for you to have your own computer or a laptop. Obviously, no cell phones or iPads or any of that. So if you had like the internet in your room in 98, that was like next level. I don't think we got the internet at my house until like right around 98, actually. So I was in like 6th grade, and we got our first like family computer that went online and actually had a mouse and all that. All right, so back to this stuff. I love the different pictures of Kirk they have here. They have him looking nice and classy, playing probably a Godin. Is that a classical? Yeah, it's a classical. And then over here we got him from like the Black Album days, where he looks like Weird Al, and he's holding like a samurai sword or something. Down here we got him from the 80s with an afro. Actually, it's a probably 90s picture. That's like the Load tour or something. With his Rhodes, his awesome black Rhodes. And then over here he looks like Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. And he's got his KH2 ESP, sick EMG pickups. We got Blue Train by John Coltrane. Kashmir. I learned this when I was a kid. When I had this, but you know, I've rebought this magazine. But yeah, I remember learning Kashmir. And my dad was a Led Zeppelin fan, but he didn't even know Kashmir. So he knew a couple of their albums. But I played it for him, and he's like, yeah, dude, it sounds awesome. And I also didn't know how to retune my guitar, so, like, I guess it's in drop D, even though... Okay, so that's not actually drop D now that I look at it. That's D-A-D, G-A-D. I didn't know that song was in a different tuning. Probably that's why my dad's like, I don't know what song that is. That's funny. Oh, yeah, Kirk's looking cool there with his Eclipse signature model. Sales of Charon, Taken by Force, Scorpions. Hideaway, King of the Blues, Freddie King. So I'm guessing that's like the album in the middle. But Not For Me, Chet Baker. I honestly don't know most of these songs. I gotta look them up. We Bet You Will Hear with Perfect Pitch and Turn That Tin Ear into Gold. Tin ear. That's funny. Modes for Morons. So an article about teaching you modes. That's cool. I like that. I'm a big modes kind of guy. I love practicing my modes. Is that the dude from Korn? No. Oh, God, that's a mistake. Max Cavalera. I thought that was the singer of Korn for a second. Is that obviously a BC Rich Warlock? What kind of paint job? Is that Crackle? Kind of hard to tell. It's got like a camo thing going on for sure. Sit strings, stay in tune strings. I think ESP, from like the Edwards guitars that I bought new, come with those strings. And now we get into the tabs. So this is how we learned tabs back in the day, everybody. Every month you'd get, 5 new songs that you can learn full all the way through. Half the time they were pretty inaccurate, but they get you close. Like, it sounded pretty good, especially for a kid. Then we always have a couple different columns back here. You could order back issues. I loved looking at these. These showed, like, are these the previous year's issues, I think? And you can go back and order the Van Halen one and the Ace Frehley and the James Hetfield. That one actually is a good one. So Guitar One, advertised in Guitar... Oh, this is Guitar. I thought this was Guitar World this whole time. Guitar wasn't around too long, actually, so that's funny. So we got the Goo Goo Dolls guy. Looks like Jake Paul. Musician's Friend. Oh, nice. Did they charge for their catalog? Doesn't look like it. I remember one of my friends bought a guitar from Musician's Friend in like 9th grade. I used Blue Steels for a while. Yeah, here's another one of those concert t-shirt companies. They sell stickers and Zippo lighters with bands on them, woven patches, videos, color posters, magnets for like your refrigerator, blacklight posters, all these awesome t-shirts. And then they got a ton more listed in here too. So, man, that was... I never ordered a shirt from one of those places, but I always wanted to. Then we got gear reviews here. Fender Half Stack Hybrid Heaven. Goodbye or goodbye. Picking up cheap gear wisely. I like that. So we recently had an electric guitar come into our test lab that was a cause for general alarm. First, it was made in some godforsaken backwoods province of Asia. Second, it had a street price of well under $200. And third, and most importantly, its body was made of plywood. Oh, that's been a subject we've been talking about a little bit lately. It says, we'll continue here. Plywood? Yep. Often these kinds of facts give us gearheads the willies, but I bravely took the next step and plugged it in. I don't remember how much time passed during the sound test, chiefly because I was having such a good time. This guitar put a lot of things I take for granted in question. Can a cheapo guitar also be a serious guitar? How much do materials affect tone? And could I ever show it to my friends without total embarrassment? Let's tackle these and other questions in this total reassessment of cheap gear and learn how to buy the good stuff. I like this article. So he's actually saying it was kind of embarrassing to even try this guitar. He wouldn't even want to, tell people it's made in some backwoods place in Asia. Turns out it was a nice guitar. So I love the idea of this, or the concept of it, because when I first started modding guitars, that's what I would do. I'd buy lower or mid-level, not lower, not the cheapest, but I'd go mid-level and rebuild them. And still I'm buying mid-level guitars pretty often. I mean, a Korean LTD I guess that's a mid-level guitar. And when you upgrade the hardware on them, they're excellent instruments. So yeah, I guess this kind of article really speaks to me. And we were talking about last week when I was showing some of the viewers' videos Brian Ragland has a big collection of guitars, a lot of them that he built, and he built them out of plywood. There were some people who criticized it in the comments, and I'm even a little, questionable about it. But we've talked before, and I want to have him build me a body, send it to me, and then, refinish it, do all the finishing work, and put it together. And I want to try it out and see what I really think of it. I saw a video where it shows how he does it, and it's a crazy, it's a lot of work to make those things look good. So let's continue here. Guitars. Now, not every budget guitar is a thing of beauty. We've seen plenty of horror shows in our day, especially when dealing with guitars made of laminated plywood or even particle board, compressed sawdust and glue. But as in all guitars, there are two factors that are the most crucial: playability and tone. The Wonder cheapo mentioned above happened to have a really nice fast fingerboard, low action, and a straight neck. Its pickups were also surprisingly good. There's no question in my mind that I could use this axe on a recording and fool my friends into thinking it was the real thing. That is, the renowned classic it was copying. Scary, huh? Granted, the guitar wasn't perfect. The tuners and other hardware were made of low-grade metal, and the whammy tended to send the guitar out of tune. The pickup toggle didn't feel too solid, and the finish showed tiny plywood ridges under the paint. But for $175, who cares? Again, the most important things are the sound and the feel, and this axe scored high on both categories. So that's what I love to hear. That's what I'm talking about. I was just saying the hardware, upgrade the pickups, but the neck and the body sometimes are decent quality, and you can get a lot out of them. There's a couple different sections. He goes into amps here. Maybe we'll go read the first the paragraph of that. I'm going to predict that the amps, he's going to say, kind of stick away from the cheap ones, I'm going to guess. And then the effects, I would say the same thing. Maybe back in the late 90s, effects did not sound as good as they do today. Unless you got like real high-end stuff, but, high-end. Not just like the cheap Dan Electro or cheap budget pedals. Those all sounded like garbage. And even a lot of the multi-effect stuff that was mid-level or entry-level sounded pretty bad. Like the Digitech RP series that... At the time, I was 11 or 12 years old when I was playing it. I thought it sounded good, but now when I go back, I actually have one somewhere around here, like an RP50. I was going to sell it on eBay, by the way, but after fees and paying shipping and all that stuff, you'd only get like $5 to $10 after. And I'm like, I'll just keep it around, let my kids play with it so that they're not messing up the axe effects when they're like 7 years old. So amps. I would say that buying a cheap amp these days is not as precarious a task as buying a cheap guitar, primarily because it's a very competitive market out there and every company is trying to put out the best amps for the lowest buck. There are even good little tube amps out there for under $300, but keep a few things in mind. First, just because the specs say there's a tube in the amp doesn't mean it will sound good. There are some thin, crappy sounding tube amps out there, for sure, and there are some fat-toned solid stators around too. Make sure you understand the differences between a tube amp, a solid state amp, and a hybrid amp, such as one with the tube in the preamp and a solid state power section. By the way, I've got a couple Marshall hybrids like that, and I love them. For the tones I like, I like the compressed 80s Metallica sound and Van Halen tones, and I think you can get great tones out of those kinds of amps. Each family has winners and losers in the low end of the marketplace. So that actually surprised me. I didn't think that they were going to say you can go with cheap budget stuff. But $300 isn't very cheap, and back then, $300 was a lot more expensive than $300 today. Effects. Again, the good return policy applies here. It's tough to suss the electronic hardware itself since it's all PC boards typically and maybe a battery compartment, but in the store, wiggle the cable tips in the input jacks while the amp is on and listen for any cutouts or noise. If there's a loose or bad connection, avoid that cheapo effect. Also, think about the durability of the chassis. Is it made of plastic or metal? Are you willing to spend any money on a plastic pedal that's going to crack the first time you step on it with your heel instead of your toe? Good advice. Like I was saying, the Dan Electros had like plastic input jacks and plastic housings for like the little mini series. They were super affordable. I think they were like $35 back then for like a flanger pedal. And I loved Boss pedals, but at the time I was like $130 for a flanger from them. And you can get 3 or 4 Dan Electro pedals for less than the price of one Boss pedal. But like you said, you get what you pay for. I have a Metal Zone pedal somewhere around here that I've had since these days. It's March of '98. I probably got it right around then. Certain products are going to last and certain ones aren't. And Boss pedals, if you treat them right, you can be pretty rough on them, but they last almost forever. Do you guys agree with this budget stuff? Do you like budget amps and guitars? What about pedals? What's your guys' favorite few pedals? Leave it in the comments. I'm interested in hearing. Do you guys like any of the cheaper pedals, like the, cheaper Ibanez, or there was like these cheap ones in like Musician's Friend that were like 15 or 20 bucks a piece. The California Clear guitar picks, so these were a new product at the time. I remember when those came out. Jimmy Vaughn Signature Strat, 650 bucks, very affordable. Is it made in Mexico? Where's it made? U.S. Vintage Hardware, Tex-Mex pickups. I don't see it on there. The live sound of Metallica's Lead Man. So here we have guitar, not a Les Paul usually, into his wah, into distortion pedal, into equalizer, into chorus. These are not specific at all. Into delay, into amp. And then he's got some sample settings for the amp. Though many of Reload's basic tracks were recorded during the same sessions that produce Load, the guitars on Metallica's latest release sound beefier. There are still plenty of those familiar scooped middle metal chords and a generous helping of wah-wah fueled leads, but some of Kirk Hammett's solos almost have a Keith Richards-like crunch tone. Some of the odder sounds come from a Roland VG8 and Digitech whammy pedal, but you should be able to simulate the classic Metallica sound with a few basic pedals. Metal distortion pedals often have the mid-range pre-scooped, but to be safe, you may want to use a graphic EQ pedal set for the smiley face EQ. Just add wah, chorus, and some delay to simulate the stadium sound until you actually are playing stadiums. For rhythm, use the distortion and the EQ pedals. For crunchy solos, use the amp gain alone. Add the wah and distortion pedals for the more screaming leads. For clean, just back off the guitar volume and add chorus. Lock and load. The House of Hammett, breaking down Kirk's rig, and then it shows him playing an acoustic guitar. Because their act involves so much moving around, the guitarists leaping around 2 stages and sharing microphones, Metallica has adopted a stripped-down approach to on-stage gear. The only effect lead guitarist Kirk Hammett can visibly be seen accessing is his wah pedal, which he has set up in 4 different locations. This is actually not the wah itself, but a controller that sends a signal back to a rack mount unit housing spaces for 3 other controllers. Wow, that's cool. Kirk's guitar signal goes from his ESP guitar outfitted with EMG active pickups into a Sony wireless system, then into a Mesa Boogie amp switcher. This allows the signal to be routed to the 3 devices Kirk uses regularly: a Marshall JMP1 preamp, a Mesa Boogie tri-axis preamp, and the Mesa Boogie dual rectifier amp head. The signal then has the option of going through a TC Electronic M2000 multi-effects processor, or goes directly into a rack of Mesa Boogie Strategy 400 power amps, which drive Mesa Boogie cabinets in various configurations. Kirk derives his basic rock and roll crunch sound primarily from the dual rectifier and uses the JMP1 and tri-axis for clean and over-the-top distortion sounds. Wow. Oh, we got an article from the Metallica tech, Justin Crew. Very awesome. Oh, we got a new Pearl Jam over here. Ooh, more back issues. I always wanted this one. I mean, I always liked the Flying V one. And we got a Metallica one up there, too. Fast Tracks, we got Sublime. You guys Sublime fans? Oh, and then we got one last Kirk Hammett article in the back. It shows them using a wine bottle, whiskey bottle, something, as a bow. Everything You Know Is Wrong by Kirk Hammett. So this article, he's talking about how as they're changing their style and doing different things and doing things that at that time were considered different, people are going to criticize. And he gets a lot of criticism, and people are always going to be telling you you're wrong. But that's basically what he means by everything you know is wrong. The bottom line is you can't please everyone all the time. And he said, whichever way you go, someone is going to tell you you're wrong. My point is that you should just go with your heart and just play what you want to play and not listen to what's fashionable or what's trendy at the moment. I can remember in the 80s, a lot of guitar players tried to chase credibility by saying they were heavily influenced by classical music. At this time, it was uncool to be technical and know music theory, and people were just wanting to kind of play from the heart more. But back in the 80s, he was saying, you know, people wanted the classical influence and wanted to know more theory. So no matter what you're doing, there's always going to be somebody on the other side telling you you're wrong. Sometimes it's really popular to be into one thing, and then you grasp that style or that genre of music and make it your own. But then all of a sudden, people are like, oh, you're playing that? Don't you know it's really cooler just to play 3 chords? So, interesting. Seems like this theme was them dealing with criticism, you know, which sucks. I think all these years later, a lot of people really like Load and Reload, and in my opinion, they've stood the test of time. They have great songs on them, even the weird songs like Mama Said or Low Man's Lyric. But even like they have like slow, trudgy songs like Devil's Dance. And then there's, you know, Thorn Within, and just so many good songs on Load and Reload. So this is an awesome magazine. I remember it being good, and I can't wait to read through this whole thing. Very awesome. Let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments. If you want more read-throughs like this, or you have a way for me to improve them, let me know. I'm interested in hearing your guys' feedback on this stuff. Guys, we hit over 900 subscribers this week on the channel, and I want to say thanks so much. That is so cool. We're almost at 1,000 in like 2 months, and I appreciate you guys subscribing and watching. I'll see you guys very soon in the next video. Rock on, my friends. Happy 4th of July. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments so I'll keep doing videos like this. Here's a link to a previous issue I did with Dimebag Darrell, and another video where I read through a Jackson catalog with you guys. Thanks for watching, and be sure to hit that subscribe button.